You are supposed to be up here. Hold on just a second here. We are going to fit this window real quick. Okay. And then we've got, we'll be doing a little bit of Substance Painter today. I might be a little rusty, but we'll make our way through it. And okay, this is up and running. This is up and running. So, where do we leave off? We were doing pants. And we also, you know what? I have to open up let me scooch this down here real quick. Fly right. Actually, Summit. And hopefully this opens quickly. Yesterday it was taking a while. There we go. All right, so we're going through here. We're going through rapid iteration of characters. We talked about just getting your concept sketches done and Dynamesh, and there's actually an H-polish brush I want to talk about here. So here's the quick blockouts here, and now we're getting into, we did some pants. If you want to do boots, let me go to my, and boot, like if you just want to sculpt boots, it's the exact same deal. We'll just make some real quick boots if we want. But if you want to go a little bit higher, heavier, deeper into boots, there's a link right down here for a ZBrush boot tutorial. You can click on it. Here's my YouTube playlist, about 18 videos, and then there's a little image in here that you can enlarge and you can walk through that. So I can link that to y'all. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. We're just kind of picking up where we left off. Now we streamed for about an hour on ZBrush's channel on ZBrushLive.com, and boy, I didn't get very far. So I'm going to try to scooch along here a little bit. I also had to take a Benadryl last night because, man, allergies. It's always like fall, September, late September, early October, just killer. I also have my Discord server set up. I can, let's see, general chat. Oh wait, that's me. Dennis Porter at work's been helping me out quite a bit, and then also on, oh, I can click this button, and also a guy named Bertie on my Discord's been helping me navigate this mess that is Discord. It's not a mess, I just don't really know it that much. But let me go ahead and do, okay, live stream chat, create instant invite, copy. Here you go. Anybody who's, yeah, here you go. Here's an invite. And go in the live stream chat there, if that's your thing. It's not my thing, but I'm trying. I'm trying. So we were using a base body, a female base body from my ZBrush workshop here. So this is a Pixologic stream backup. So whenever my live stream gets backed up, it goes here. So that's the workshop link. And then also, let's see. So we're using the base body from that. I'm just going to go use a base body that you guys have access to. So if we go over here to Tools, you're going to have a NIC-Z. Here's a Legacy NIC-Z. If you're going to use this one, you're going to have to, the only reason I'm not going to use the Legacy one is because he has a wiener, and I don't want to get flagged by YouTube for inappropriate content, because I have before. So what I'm going to do is go over here to this NIC-Z humanoid and drag him out. And he's been Ken Dollified. So what we can do is we can start out with like a base mesh like this, and then we can go over here to say open up our subtool menu, open up our geometry menu. This is where I spend most of my time, and of course my custom menu, which you can find on my Gumroad and QBrush page under the Intro to ZBrush files. So we made a pair of pants, and now let's go ahead and really quickly make this shirt and also do this webbing. And again, this is just really quick. It's nothing super fantastic, but we can certainly make some headway there. So what we can do is, you know, let's say this thing was divided up and he actually had detail. So one thing you can do as you're dividing up and you want to refine is you can go through here and you can use your, I like to use Damien Standard just to kind of dig in where I want details to go. And then I'll use my clay brush to kind of build up the muscle around that and between those two, and then I'll also drop in my standard brush. I'll increase my Z intensity a bit, and then also I like, by default the standard brush has a lazy radius of 1. We talked yesterday about how to save off a variation of brushes and where to put them, or if you want to save over the defaults, where to put those. But the lazy radius here, I'm going to crank up so at least I know it's on, and then I can tap L to turn it off, and then I can just do a little bit quicker sculpting. So I'll go through here, and I'll use my Damien standard and standard brush to kind of dig in where I want to have details. So like the brachioradialis, I can kind of dig in a little bit, and that little sinus right here that's in between the pec and the deltoid, I can dig in. And if I want to increase the separation along the sternal side of the pec, I can, and I can put some striations in there, so I can just kind of detail this out. I can dig in, and then I can go in here to my clay brush, and then I can kind of build up. You don't have to use a clay brush. You can use clay buildup if you're doing a little bit heavier. You can use the standard brush if you want. There, you can just kind of do that. And then as we're subdividing, we're always able to go, and then we just kind of refine from here. Refine from here, so we can go through here and we can kind of, again, just keep digging in where we want separation, where we want a little bit more contrast. And it's just a clay brush, and I'm using hotkeys, so anything I use, I want to switch between, and I use all the time, like every 5 minutes, it gets a hotkey in the interface. Assigning a hotkey in the interface is simply holding down Control Alt, and you can tap, and it says press any key combination. So if I do like Alt, let's see, something I never use, Alt 8, I can assign Alt 8 to the color menu, or I can assign Alt 8 to twist. That's a bad example. Assign Alt 8 to turning on surface noise for my brush. You know, anything in the ZBrush interface, you can pretty much assign a hotkey to. But anyway, so that's kind of just going through and refining organic meshes like this. Now, you also generally, unlike clothing, which we talked about yesterday, when I'm doing, refining organic stuff like creatures and muscularity on objects here, I like to work like I'm sketching. I'll start low and get my forms perfect, and then I'll go up one subdivision, continue to refine, go up another subdivision, continue to refine, and that way the mesh is more predictable, and it also, I don't spend a lot of time smoothing. And if you're having a hard time smoothing, it's probably because your mesh is too dense. There are things you can do. You can go in, hit the comma key. You do have to hit the comma key, I'm sorry. So if you hold down Shift, you're going to see we have a smooth brush activated. It's already maxed out at Z intensity, but if I subdivide this a couple more times, so I'm at like 2.24 million points, and I try to smooth, it's not going to have much of an effect. You can go down here to the smooth brush modifiers, and you can say weighted smooth mode. If you hold down Control, it'll give you a lot of information on that, but you can change this to stronger, which is 1. If I change this to 1, now when I hold down Shift to smooth, it'll smooth stronger. However, what you can also do, and what I do, is if you go up here to your comma key, go to your brushes, go to smooth, you can go in here and there is like a smooth stronger. You can choose that one. But I use that one all the time. So what I do is I stored that. Oh boy, I'll go ahead and show you the menu or the file location again. So here's ZBrush 28 C program files, Pixelogic ZBrush 2018, Z startup, brush presets, and I have smooth stronger in there. I could save over my smooth brush, but I like to have it around. But when I start up ZBrush, a lot of times I'll just hit the B key and then just choose smooth stronger. And then now when I hold down Shift, smooth stronger is chosen. You can also hold down Shift and just choose it, and then it'll skip that little menu. But now that way, when I hold down Shift, I can smooth stronger, and I'll be like, whoa, I can really smooth. If you have smooth stronger chosen, and you don't want to smooth it that strong, just hold down Shift and then just drop that Z intensity down. So this actually gives you a broader range of smoothability, which I prefer, but I'll leave that up to you. So anyway, that was a little bit of organic sculpting here. Let me get caught up on the chat here. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good time. Cool. Awesome. Thanks for showing up for the ZBrush Summit. And yeah, a lot of really good stuff in there. I gotta figure out this mic so I can drink around it. I'm drinking hot water. Cool. Thanks for thinking I'm awesome. I don't know if I agree with that, but I'll take it. Michael, will you render it in Substance Painter Iray? You know what? I will. I'll render the concept sketch in Iray today. Enver asks, does the clay brush change somehow? Because when I watch old videos, clay brush strokes look awesome. It's more close to clay too. When I try clay brush, it works different. You know, brushes change. Also, depending on the tablet you're using, sometimes that can have an effect. I know it. I teach at Gemini, and they're using old bamboo tablets, and they have a much different feel than my Intuos. But if you want the clay brush to work, so I'll go to my clay brush hotkey. You can also go to B, C, L, and that'll load up clay brush here. If you do want it to behave more like a clay tubes or a clay buildup, what you can do is you can go to your clay brush, and I do this sometimes too. So here's the clay brush look. It's got to fall off. You can go through here with clay brush select. You can change that focal shift, and that'll kind of harden up those edges. But then it can start to stutter. You can go into your stroke menu and the lazy step. You can turn the lazy mouse on, turn the lazy step down, and that'll alleviate that somewhat. You can also go in here and throw in an alpha, like alpha 06, and that'll also harden it up without having to resort to a focal shift change. You can do both. And if you change this to a rectangle stroke, then it will actually behave a little bit more like clay buildup, as well as just increasing your Z intensity. You can go through here and you can kind of fine tune to see if that clay brush, you can get it to, behave a little bit more like that. And if I am using this type of brush, and sometimes I'll do that with the clay brush, I think I'll stick to this round alpha though. This is where if I'm building up, let's go ahead and delete higher, on like subdivision level 3, and I want to do like really striated, separated muscles, I'll use this one here. So it's like, okay. And the pec muscle here, it has 3 places where it inserts on the body, and then it all attaches onto the about. So here's the deltoid. Just above the deltoid, it goes through and it flips over. So for example, if you want to draw on ZBrush, you can go out of edit mode. That'll drop it to the canvas, and then I can go up here to my simple brush, and I can just grab this. You've probably almost done this accidentally if you've just grabbed the simple brush and started to draw. So for example, we have our sternal side of our pec, and it's going to go over here, and we've got, well, first we'll grab, here's our collarbone, and it's going to go up here to our chromium process, and then underneath that you're going to have your head of your humerus, and that's going to go down, and then you're going to have your lateral and medial condyle, epicondyle of the humerus, and then you're going to have your sternal connection here, and all of these are going to go through here, and it's all going to attach to the humerus about here. And then your deltoid is going to go attach from, well, we'll finish with the pec. So here's the sternal attachment of the pec, and all these muscle fibers are going to go through here, and they're going to crisscross over. And then on the rib cage, they're going to cross up and up here. And then from the clavicle, it's going to attach to the clavicle here and then go down and again just fan over. So this will be the pec. And then the deltoid's also going to attach to the clavicle, but there's going to be a little space there, and that's going to attach about halfway down the humerus, and it's going to attach the clavicle all the way around the chromium process, all the way down the spine of the scapula, and then the deltoid's going to cover all that up. So that's what's happening with this pec muscle. So if we go ahead and hit Control N to clear our canvas, and then we grab our mesh back, we drag it out, we go into edit mode, and then we go in here. Now you can kind of see while we're doing this, this is the separation between, and you can use our Damian standard, the separation between the deltoid and the pec, and then the deltoid's overlapping that pec muscle, and then on here, this is where the sternal section of the pec is going to attach, and you can have some separation along here. You can see the bone sometimes depending on your reference, depending on the body type, and then here it's going to cut up, and then you're going to have some more attachments along the bottom here, and again underneath in the armpit is where those things cross over. You're not going to see that attachment point or anything, but it's there. But that'll just give you a little bit of a guide as to how these muscles flow and where they attach. And knowing the attachments and how things flow can sometimes help you, keep you honest and making your muscles. So we go in here to geometry. Again, if we hold down shift, we're smoothing a lot, right? And it's a low res mesh. I can hold down shift because we put smooth stronger on. We can drop that down, and then we can just smooth just a little bit here, so we can kind of soften these transitions a bit. We've dug in quite a bit, but we don't want to make it look like he's skinless. We just want to make it look like he's ripped. And then now we can just tone that down just a bit here. And that's the thing too about learning anatomy and learning superficial anatomy versus, or in conjunction with just regular écorché anatomy. And then it's like, well, you can learn the muscles and stuff, but then if you don't learn the fat deposits and where the skin and stuff and how that interacts with the body, then you can end up, there's a lot of information that happens superficially. So anyway, I'm digressing quite a bit. So going back to the the demo ZBrush Summit thing, let's put a big floppy shirt on him. And again, this is not, we're not going to the Marvelous Designer yet. You certainly can at this point. It's not difficult or slow, but we'll stick with ZBrush for just a bit. So again, we're going to go into Mask Lasso. We'll give him a nice 80s style t-shirt here. So this is about where that t-shirt's going to go, big open neck. And what I like to do, we already have polygroups broken up on the ZBrush model. You may or may not have that, but I'm going to duplicate him off. I'm going to hit Control. You can hit Control W, and that'll give you a polygroup. If I want a cleaner cut along here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete lower, go into Edge Loop, do Edge Loop Mask Border, and that'll just cut a slice along here. Actually, before I do all that, let's go back out. Let's unmask. Let's hit Control W, make it all one polygroup. I have my original back here, so I can keep those. And then for the shirt here, then I'll just go through here really quickly again and just put in his shirt. Now I have X symmetry turned on, so that is mirrored. That mask did come out mirrored. And then if you want to clean that up, hold down Control. Let's go back to Mask Pin. And you know what? We'll keep it a belly shirt. So I'm just going to hold down Control Alt. There we go. So now I can go in here to Edge Loop Mask Border. Boy, where is it? There it is. Oh, it can't be applied to multiple sublevels. So I'm going to hit Delete Lower. And then, so I'm deleting my subdivision history, and then I'm doing Edge Loop Mask Border, because that's slicing through the geometry. So if you want to make changes to geometry like we did yesterday, you have to either freeze your subdivision levels and do it, and that drops you to the lowest, or you can just delete lower, and then you can just work with this. Because this is already pretty low, what I can do is go into my ZRemesher. I can change my target polygon count. I'm just going to go to half, drop that adaptive size down to 0 and hit ZRemesh. Adaptive size down to 0. Oops. Also geometry modify topology delete hidden. So we can get rid of those polygons. And now when I ZRemesh, now I can just keep hitting half, and now I can go ahead and again letting ZBrush do the heavy lifting for me. Now at this point, just like when we were doing pants, we can either cap this off, or we can go through here and like QMesh polygroup all and just give it some thickness. I tend to like to use, instead of QMesh, so this is a Z modeler brush, BZM, hover over a face, I like to use extrude polygroup all when I'm doing stuff that might have a little bit of a tight area, because QMesh tends to stick polygons together. It's a feature of it, which we'll get into when we get into hard surface modeling for the drone. But this way, I don't have to worry about that. And also, if you want to move along, like inflate along the surface normal, just do an extrude or a QMesh. Start doing it, hold down Shift, and that just pushes those polygons along. So if you want to make it thicker on the inside, just grab that inside polygroup, hold down Shift, and again, hovering over a face, we're extruding polygroup all. So it's just going to extrude all those polygroups you touch first. And then we're just holding down Shift so we don't get that extra edge loop, and it just pushes along the surface normal there. Of course, just like pants, you can also do this, which is kind of how I prefer to work, especially when I'm concepting, which is to either go through here, hover over an edge, and do a close convex hole, and just close that. Or if you want to do kind of a dirtier hole, close concave hole, and you can do that. Like I mentioned before, you can also go through and delete these extra edges, and it actually does decent, nice geometry, quad it as much as it can. And then that way you don't have to worry about sculpting on thin surfaces. However, because we're going to make this kind of a floppy shirt that kind of sits on top, it may behoove you to make it thin. But also, because I am going to end up dynameshing this together and making an envelope, sometimes having that draft or having this go straight back to the body is also beneficial. So in this case, what I am going to do is I'm going to do a closed concave hole for this area up here, and then over here, we're going to do a closed convex hole. So we're just going to put a polarized cap on these edges here. And I also like to hold down Control Shift, isolate these, hit Control W. So that's all one polygroup, not that kind of pie stuff here. And then again, if you wanted to clean this up, first of all, you're going to want to do a geometry modify topology mirror and weld, and then you can go through here and you can clean these up. So you can hover over an edge, you can do a collapse edge on these areas here, and then if you want to go across this thing, you can go hover over this edge here and you can do a split edge. We can split this edge right down the middle, and then we can do a hover over a point here, you can do a bridge 2 points, and you can bridge this point to this point. Sometimes I'll use my mouse here if I need a little bit more control. It's a little bit tough to get in there. There we go. And then you can hover over that edge and you can collapse that edge there. So now that you've done that, you can go through here, and because it's symmetrical, now you can just do a delete edge. You can go through here, and if you delete every other one, you can kind of see that topology that it gives you. And again, it's not great. It's just a simple, stupid way for you to kind of come up with quads without having to go through and retopologize. You can also ZRemesh this in here, and you can actually ZRemesh by polygroup here, so you can actually leave the rest of your mesh alone. Just give that a shot. So if you isolate this, that's actually, let's see if we can ZRemesh visible. We'll say keep groups. Actually, we want to freeze border. Smooth groups of 1, let's say same, ZRemesh that. So you can ZRemesh this and it'll do it, but let's do, there we go. So now you can ZRemesh that really quickly and get that geometry. I think that'll work. So either way you want to do that, that's fine. Just to be sure, I'm going to make sure these welded. Yeah, those welded. Okay, so freeze border, turn keeps groups off. That'll go ahead and just ZRemesh this. I hit same, so there you go. Now what we can do is we can go into the geometry crease menu and we can say crease polygroup. So as we're subdividing this up, it's not going to average those vertices along that border. Of course, I've got to hit that button, crease PG. There we go. And then as we subdivide, it'll keep it nice and creased. Now, if we wanted to make this, it is a floppy shirt, we can go ahead and again just extrude along that surface normal so we can get the arms and the bottom bigger. And again, if you wanted to make this a thin mesh that's just going to be a shirt sitting on top, then obviously don't cap. But because I am going to be, dynameshing this down into one solid mesh, I'm going to kind of fake it. And so when I do go, let's turn off X symmetry here. When I do go through here and I'm like, okay, you are going to be kind of hanging this way a little bit, and then this is going to go up maybe, and then it's going to go off his shoulder a little bit, down his arm, and then this side's going to be a little higher. You can do that. If you're going to be doing major changes where you're going to be skewing your geometry quite a bit, then I would go ahead and say, take your low res that you ZRemeshed, mush it into place first, and then ZRemesh that result. So that way you're getting a very, as much quadded as you can get. So for example, if I'm making like some major changes like this and I'm squishing those polygons around, and I'm kind of losing my squares, at that point, we can just isolate this. We can say delete hidden. We can go to ZRemesh same, and then just get some new geometry that's a little bit more consistent as far as quads and stuff. And actually, we delete hidden. And oh, we also have X symmetry turned off at this point. So we can ZRemesh here, and there we go. Let's do here half. Oh, you know what? Turn off freeze border. Freeze border keeps your polygons there. I was wondering why I have a hard time. Okay, so we'll do same. Turn off freeze border so that way it can dictate those edges, and then there we go. So now we have nice even quads again, and then you can just go through here, and I'm just going to, on this one, I'm just do a quick close holes, and I'm not going to do a mirror and weld because it's not mirrored anymore. And there we go. So now we've got our shirt here. And again, we're not doing thickness on the shirt because I want to give it the illusion that it's a floppy, thin shirt, but in reality, I want to make sure there's no gaps. Because if I do a thin shirt and then it goes way up in the body and then way back down and I try to do an envelope, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So again, I'm putting in draft there. There's two types of draft. There's like draft to your head that you can see where it's like your head goes backwards. And then there's also draft if you're like 3D printing where this stuff goes back. So when you make a mold, when you're pulling it out, you don't have undercuts. Okay, let me get caught up again. Side effect says, thanks for promoting Croatia. Yeah, Croatia was awesome. If you saw that slide, it was way down here where I explain on vacation here. So yeah, we started in Zagreb, then we ended up in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and then down here, we just, we kept going south and Mostar, and then Split, and Hvar. Kotor should be in there somewhere, and then back up here to, we went to the forest up here, and then we went to Zagreb, and then we flew back out again. So it was really, really a good time. Great time of year. I think we missed all of the rain. It was sunny the entire time. I think we got like 5 minutes of rain down here on the coast. And then it was really, really awesome. So if you've been to the Mediterranean side, but you haven't been to the Adriatic Sea side, I would definitely suggest doing that. A lot of good times. Vinny says, put brush modifier slider somewhere accessible to be able to change the strength of any brush on the go, also smooth strength. Yes, also, so yeah, when we were talking about that clay brush and those settings under here under brush modifiers, you have this one. This one does different things depending on the type of brush it is, but you can play with this one too. It's a secondary effect to your brush. Learning resources for Houdini, I watched a lot of Louise Cruel and John Vito Serra YouTube videos. And also on my playlist here, if you want to kind of dip your toe into Houdini for a couple hours and kind of get the swing of things and also make your own game res automated pipeline, I do have a game dev tool set. This is, I think, a pretty good intro to Houdini. Not to toot my own horn, but it goes all the way through how to install, getting the dev tools, and then making your own automated pipeline for your game res stuff. So definitely check this out if you've got a couple hours and you want to use it. And you can use Houdini Apprentice, I believe, and that's just free. Not sure when the new UV stuff's coming out, but it looks really cool. Have you done any armor from start in any of your previous workshop videos? Yeah, and if you go to my YouTube channel, and it's kind of hit or miss, if you go to my playlists, if you scroll down and you go here to like ZBrush Mech Helmet Concept or Concept Sketching, these are pretty old, but you can see me kind of getting my ideas out quickly. And then if you just do a search for armor, on here you can see here's chest armor breakup, here's stylized shoulder pads. So I do armored dock worker. I do go over a bit of armor techniques, hard surface geo techniques that are like in my ZBrush 2018 What's New videos. Also, if you go to my Pavlovich workshop and you scroll all the way down, we do start out making this sci-fi female from scratch. Again, it's pretty old, but we are going through here and doing a lot of, we make her tech suit, and we go through here, and I'm just kind of concepting some armor out. But we'll be talking about some of this in this series as well. Jang asks, I want to apply an IMM zipper brush mesh on a curve, but how to reverse the direction of the zipper mesh on the curve. You can capture the curve reverse. I'll add this. When we get into controlling curves, I think I'll be able to demo that. Although that's a good one. I might stumble through that one a little bit. This is the stream for fast speaking artists. When I do the compilation for my YouTube channel, I'm making a nice playlist. For sure, slow me down if you need to. Thanks for showing up, Shasha. Oh yeah, there's multiple variety of clay brushes. So just like the smooth brush, when we went into the Key, there's the smooth brush folder. There's also a bunch of clay brushes in here you can choose from, and you can also, just like we were talking about before, you can go through the brush modifiers and the stroke settings here. And if you want to steal properties from another brush, like, you know what, I like how HBrush, we talked about this yesterday, if we go over to samples, preserves my edges. You can set up, you can go in here to your clay brush, you can hit clone, make a clay brush variant, and you can name it later and save it. But you can go through here and you can say, oh, look at these HPolish properties, and then when you go to your clay brush clone, you can dial those in and you can see if you can get a little bit more. Cool. Cool. Okay. And again, if I miss anything, I apologize in advance. I'm kind of scrolling through these really quick. Cool. All right. Question. Hi, Michael. How long did the cinematic take to make? My portion of it didn't take too long. I just did the modeling on some stuff, and I'll load some of those up in later episodes. But a couple of weeks to kind of put that together. And again, it was just it was that group of people who helped me work on it here. Just a handful of people working in their part-time during lunch and after work, just to kind of put that together. They did a really amazing job. My part of the job was really easy, but they did some really bang-up work here, and I'll detail that as we go forward. Exactly what they did, and we can actually look at that video a little bit too. So let's get to the shirt. So we've got the shirt here, and we've got drafts, so we can just bake all this out. Now, if we want to, again, we can go through here under the geometry crease menu, crease poly group. We can divide this up, and just like when we're doing organic sculpting, while we're dividing this up, you can go through here, and I'm going to turn on hit L for my lazy radius. And we can go through here. Can we not do that? Standard brush, lazy radius 20. There we go. And again, this isn't. This isn't symmetrical, so it's going to be different on both sides, but you can kind of go through here and you can start blocking this out. Now, I'm not going to do seam detail this early on in organic. I do like to kind of build up my primary and secondary forms while the mesh is low, but stuff like seams and details and stuff I'm not going to do. And also the fishnets, I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Or the crisscross pattern on our shirt, how I did that. You can do that with surface noise like we talked about a little bit yesterday. I'm going to be using another technique here, but so yeah, as we subdivide this up, again, I had crease PG, so it's keeping those edges nice and crispy. But if I go into my crease geometry crease menu and uncrease all and hit Control D, that'll kind of put a little softened bevel on that. You don't have to do that. You can just go through and you can manually smooth these out however you want. I just like the look of that fall off here, so we can kind of exaggerate the shoulder separation, kind of imply that there is going to be a seam over there, like so. And then yeah, just going through here and we're doing our sculpting. So we got all this sculpted out, and then again, keep subdividing and then go in there on really high subdivision levels, and you can put in seams however you'd like. But now what we're going to do, we got our shirt, but now we want to put on that fishnet pattern. And because I'm going to go into Painter, let's go ahead and load that file up. Painter, let's go into our streaming. Oh, you know what? It's going to be somewhere else. Hold on. I put it in the wrong area. Let me X and then streaming summit characters. There we go. I'll load this up real quick. This is a very old version of Painter that I made this in. And again, very, very low res, but we're just trying to get something representative in game. So when I back out and she's running around in a playtest, she looks like, she should. That's fine. So this is what we're trying to accomplish here. And if I go and we want to look at, let's go into layers here. Let me just throw in a fill layer and mask color collection pick. So you can see this gray right here is all just basically a mask I can select so we can paint through it. You can do this in a texture, and it might even actually be better and less destructive, but I'll show you how to do it in ZBrush. So we have this shirt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this shirt off. And if we hold down Control Shift, what we're going to do is we're going to drop down to subdivision level 1, and then we're going to delete higher because we don't want any subdivision history. We go into solo mode here. I'm going to isolate this one. We're going to hit delete hidden. Now you want nice even quads. So at this point, if you do need to, just like we talked about before, you can do like same zero mesh, depth size down to 0, and you'll get nice even quads along here, because what we're going to be doing is replacing every single face with a fishnet. If you want tinier fishnets, you can subdivide it up once, or when you're just making this, you can go to subdivision level 2, delete higher, delete lower, isolate this one, hit delete hidden. You can also dial in your zero mesher target polygon count, and you can kind of play with the square size this way. So let's say we wanted to make tinier squares. We'll just make this, and you know what? We can say half, and we can drop the size. The squares are a little bit bigger. We'll stick with this. So anyway, we want to put fishnets on here in ZBrush. So what I'm going to do, there's a couple different methods, and in fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, and again, just like we did for armor, just do a search in here for my channel. If you do a search up here, you're going to go to get everybody's. You do a search in here for my playlists or my videos, it'll give you armor. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to a plane 3D here, and you can go down here to initialize and do whatever you need to do. I like to go make polymesh 3D and then just reconstruct to get this down to like a nothing mesh here. I'm trying to remember, you know what, let's reconstruct this all the way down. I'm going to embarrass myself. I have a video on this and I'm not exactly sure. Let's not go all down all the way. Let's delete higher. So now what we want to do is we want to get we'll do an inset. So we'll do inset polygroup all region, and now we can just pull in thickness here, and then we can just do like a delete our polygroup all, and we can just delete those. But actually, now that I think about it, what we want to do is we want to go in here to insert single edge loop. Let's hit X to go across X symmetry. I'm going to insert an edge loop along here. And let's also do under transform, let's do X and Y symmetry so we can do both top and bottom. And now we can go through here, we can hold down Alt and mark these, and we can delete polygroup all. And then this one up here, we're going to say delete point. And then there is the shape we're kind of looking for. If it's going to be wrapping around a soft surface, you're probably going to want to put more divisions on here. So I'm going to do an insert single edge loop, hold down Alt, and then we'll hover over this edge and we'll go insert multiple edge loops, and then we can just add resolution as needed. You can just tap here to get that same resolution. Hit Control W, make it all one polygroup here. Hold down Shift, and I'll make this 45 degrees, and then this is going to be our nano mesh. You can go to your brush and say create insert mesh out of this, and then create a nano mesh brush out of that. Another thing you can do is just let this sit here, and then when we go back to our shirt here, we can use our Z modeler brush BZM. Hover over a face. We're going to go to Insert Nanomesh Polygroup All. Hit the M as in Michael Pavlovich key, and then just throw that in there. So that'll replace that. So now when we do an Insert Nanomesh on Polygroup All, we can just drag that out. And then now we can go down here to our Nanomesh Properties, and we can say, I want it to be size of 1, and I want it to fill that entire square. Oh, you know what? When I rotated it, it should, let's see, Z offset, we'll put that at 0, and then let's see if, Z rotation, put that at 0 as well. So now it's going to fill the entire square, and it's also going to be fishnet shaped. So at that point, there's a couple things we can do. We can go down here to Inventory 1 to Mesh, or we can go up here to Geometry, convert BPR to Geo, and that'll convert this geometry to its own Geo. Hold down Control Shift to isolate the shirt, and then with that isolated, or hidden, we're going to go down here to split hidden. So now we have our fishnets on here. Like I mentioned before, if we want, you can see if we hide this low res shirt here, we can see how the fishnets aren't really conforming to the shape. While we do have, because we put in resolution along here, that'll allow us to snap more vertices along these long edges. If you didn't have those in there, it would just be like vertex, vertex, and then it would just snap those vertices, not anything along between them. You'd have to subdivide first. But before we snap those, if you hold down Shift, you're going to see these points here. Oh, it's going to make a liar out of me. Let's go to Polish. You can go to Deformations Polish, or Polish by Features in this case, and you're going to see those points aren't welded. So I'm going to go to Geometry, Modify Topology, Weld points. The weld distance of 1 should work. If you want to, you can crank that up, but then you're going to start grabbing extra vertices, so probably weld distance of 1 is fine. Those are pretty close. Those points are pretty close together. So now if I run a Polish by Features, those points should be sticking together a little bit better than that. Let's do a weld distance of like 7. There we go. And now let's do uncrease all, because I think it does have some automatic creasing. And you know what? I'll just do a deformation polish. Boy, that polishes a bunch. Let's see. Weld points, polish by features, closed circle. There we go. So now everything's nice and welded together. So at this point, and again, we did very tiny fishnets. You could do, if you want to make thicker fishnets, there's a couple you can do that just by inflating, but also on your source art, make sure that when you put in your these edges, you can make it thicker on the edges or thinner, however you want to do that. So anyway, and this is where it gets kind of destructive. You could also do UVs on the shirt like we did with the pants, and then put a, like we did with the weave. You could do a scales pattern or whatever you want. And also in Substance Painter, you could just tile this texture through. So a lot of different ways to do this. I just figured we'd talk about the ZBrush way, or one ZBrush way. So now that we have those, if we hold down Shift, we can isolate just, hold down Shift, turn the eyeball off, we have our fishnets, and then we can turn this one back on. And with these two showing, I can go down here to project all, and then it'll project our fishnets onto that low-res shirt. Or get rid of that low res shirt, turn on your high res shirt. That's probably a better idea. And now do a project all. So now we have nice fishnets projected. Now we do have a border we can add along there. So we can take our original low res shirt here and we can say, let's go to extrude polygroup all. We can pull out a little polygroup here, and then that's going to give us a little border polygroup. So now at this point, we can hold down Control Shift. I'm going to take this polygroup here, Control Shift drag to invert, take this polygroup here, geometry modified topology delete hidden, and then just run an extrude polygroup all on these ones. And now we have like a little border mesh that'll encapsulate. And again, if we want to push along those surface normals, if we want to go like, you know what, I want you to be, oops, extrude polygroup all. That's doing both sides. So when I start bringing this out, I'm going to tap Alt, and that'll give me ensure that I have different polygroups on both sides. I hope extrude polygroup all. It's still going to do both sides. Well, there's a couple different ways we can make this work for us. Number one, we can do extrude polygroup island, and then just hold down Shift, and then you can do one side at a time if you want to even those out. And again, the reason we're doing this is it's like I want to pull this side in, and I want to push this side in as well. Just kind of moving along those surface normals. But now, of course, I've got to do that on both. There we go. So now we've got the border, and now we've got the fishnets here. Now I want to give these fishnets thickness. You can do an extract to get thickness if you want to. You can also just go in here to ZModeler. Oh, you know what? Some of these didn't weld together. Weld points. There we go. Let's do weld points, distance of 10. You kind of want to make sure you weld these things before you move them so you don't run into any problems. But let's do another extrude. Let's do all polygons here, and then you can just make these as thick as you want to. And again, you can push them along their borders. And now we have fishnets. Again, at this point, you can also go through here and you can do a deformation, inflate. If you want to inflate along their surface normal, give those a little bit more robust. So inflate. You could also type in like 0.5 and inflate if you can get very accurate with these numbers. So anyway, and then we can hit Control D if you want to subdivide, and let's do an uncrease all, so it gives us a nice round subdivision here. So there we got the fishnets. So if we want to make, hold on, Control Shift, and if I want to make just, and this is again just a really dirty GameRes envelope, what I can do is do a merge visible, and let's go ahead and append that merged tool that it just made, because it just threw it out here in my tools. So this is going to be my GameRes envelope. Now, because I know that my GameRes is just going to, I don't want to really include this detail in my GameRes, I can just isolate it, Control Shift A to grow all, invert that. Actually, we inherited some polygroups here. Damn. Control Shift A. Let's do an auto groups on this one. So now I can just isolate just the fishnets there. We can get that off of there. We can go to delete hidden. And now I can just make a GameRes out of these vertices that are showing. So this, again, this is going to be, I want to make an envelope for this. So if you have a lot of undercuts, this is where you can kind of go through and just throw in geometry to kind of hide those caverns that you don't want. And I'm just going to do a quick Dynamesh here, resolution at 432 or whatever gets you the loose envelope that you need. And then for my GameRes here, Z plugin, decimation master, preprocess current. And then we'll drop this down to like, say, 15K poly. So then this can be our GameRes, or 10K or 5K, whatever you want to do. And then at this point, you can use UV master. You should work on a clone. I'm going to skip that for now, so it's not symmetrical. You can make polygroups on here if you want. You can make polygroups for the shirt. Let's see if we can just do a group by normals. Open circle, max angle down, max angle up, close circle. Let's isolate this and isolate this. Let's crank that up. You might have to play with this. Also, when you decimate it, you can go in here and you can say, let's see, Decimation Master. You can use and keep polypaint. So if you did a poly group to polypaint and then decimated it, it can keep these things. What I'm going to do is, let's see if we can go to poly groups and we can merge some stray groups down here. Merge similar groups, and I'm just going to isolate these and hit Control W. So on all those edge cases there, we can have polygroups here. So I don't know. It's up to you. You can do that however you'd like. You can also let ZBrush determine the seams as well. So if you're not going to use polygroups, you can just go down here to unwrap, and then I'll go ahead and unwrap it for us. Then flatten, and then there's our UVs, unflatten, and we're good to go. Again, just quick and dirty, or you can go into in some of the videos I've done on my channel where we've done this process. It's been a bunch of times here. So for example, in the pistol, of course you can use the Houdini Game Dev toolset to do this. You can use I did this in the Sci-Fi Pistol series. I did this in the speed modeling and texturing. I did this in my live stream with that weird creepy book we were making to just get our UVs going and then export it out. And then of course I would throw that all into Painter. And then when you bring it into Painter, you'd go to File, New, and then you would bring in your low-res mesh. You'd go to Texture Settings, Bake Mesh Maps, load in your high, choose what output size you want, and then just go ahead and just bake. And then you'll get essentially what would look like, let me go ahead and remove that mask here. You would get something that looked like this. And then if you had material IDs on your high res and all the material IDs, and this actually, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So let's talk about, we're talking about material IDs here. Maybe not. Here. I don't even know where that slide is on my own presentation. Oh, there it is. At CA, we had Dennis Porter made us a CA scripts that has all these colors on it. If you watch the Friday demo at ZBrush, if you go to the Pixelogic channel, Pixelogic ZBrush, the exclusive first look into ZBrush development, there's some new plugins that came out. Oh, actually, yeah, so you can actually download that plugin and start using it. I haven't downloaded it yet, so I'm going to have to skip it. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'll show you, I have a tool in here that I use. It's called Simpler Color Swatches, so I can double click it, I can drag it out of my canvas, go into edit mode. I'm going to go to Skin Shader 4. I'm just going to dock this color swatches over here, and then if I go out of edit mode, it'll just stick it to my canvas, and then I can continue working. So for example, I'm going to turn everything on except for that game res we were working on. Turn off polyframe, turn off solo mode. So for example, if I wanted to hit, all I got to do is tap C anywhere in my interface and it'll inherit that color. So if I tap C over here, I can say, let's alt tap the head here and we'll tap C, and then I'm going to go to color, fill object. I have a hotkey set up for that, Alt Control F. And then if I tap on his shirt here and tap C and then do my hotkey for fill, tap this up here, hit C, fill that up. You can also do, then that's how, whoops. And then we'll grab this one and we'll fill that with gray. There you go. So that's essentially what I would do. You can also, if we I'm going to go to my merged one here. If we go in here, let's turn off our line so we just see our polyfill, and let's do a quick geometry, polygroups, auto groups. So now all of these have their own polygroup here. You can go down here to polygroups, or I'm sorry, polypaint. And you can do polypaint from polygroups. So now if I turn off my polyframe, you're going to see I have colors for these. The problem with this is, see how these two colors, this green and this lighter green, can be very similar. Ideally, you want them very spaced apart mathematically. So the RGB values are like 128, 128, 256, 256, 256, 0. That's what these colors are. Let me go ahead. I can link you guys to that. Let's see. I'm going to do a search for simple copy of simple color swatches. Share. Get shareable link. Anyone with a link can view. Copy. Done. paste to you guys, and you can do the exact same thing I did. And again, if you go to just Google ZBrush plugins, go to the ZBrush plugins and scroll down, you can get ZColor. So you know what, let's go ahead and install that. I'm going to download for window, and I'll go ahead and get these ones too. Download. And okay, so we talked about that. We made the shirt. We're in good shape here. I'm sort of breezing through these, but I'm going to go ahead and shut down ZBrush. And we're going to do some installation here. So I'm going to show in folder. And I'm going to clear some space on my desktop here. So for example, if you right click, you go to 7-zip, let's go ahead and I like to extract it to a folder first just to make sure it's a little bit self-contained and I know what's going on. So here's the folder it extracted. And in here, okay, we do have a folder. So here, oh boy, so it's got ZColor help. This will be like a little help doc on how to use it. And then also the README, this will tell you how to install it. And then you have the install folder. So in the install folder, you have a data folder and a ZScript. So if I go into my computer, and again, we go to Program Files, Pixel ZBrush 2018, Z Startup, Zplug 64, and we copy in the data folder and the ZScript into this. Let me just move it here. So we have that loaded in. So now, and we can go ahead and delete this. Let's load up ZBrush. And I guess while that's loading up, we deleted it, that's okay. And usually in the I'll make sure I'm showing up here. Good. We are recording, good. So now if we go over here to our Z plugins, we have somewhere in here ZColor. So there's our ZColor. You can launch that, and then this is just a floating interface here. Yeah, so a lot of times what they'll do is like for 3D Print Hub, you can click it and it'll actually take you through a little bit of a tutorial sometimes. That's actually a bad example. ZBrush to Photoshop's a good one. So this one has a bunch of different things you can do. You can go through and you can even click on a video on there. So now this is just a floating in your interface here. So I assume set color. There you go. I haven't actually read the instructions, but you can go through here and you can click here and you can hit set color and that'll set your color. You can filter, you can open this up, HSV, pretty cool. And then you can minimize that. So, you know, I probably should have been more prepared to demo this. It's the first time I've actually launched that. So, watch their video on it. They'll talk you all the way through it. You can save out swatches and load them up in here, so you can go to Photoshop and you can load swatches and you can just bring them in here. So you can also set up the exact same thing I did, where essentially you have those mathematically separated values as swatches. There we go. Oh, and also, so I went into my tool menu and loaded up that color swatches. So that link I sent you, if you put that into your, again, Program Files Pixel ZBrush 2018 Z Tools, you're going to see I have that simple color swatches Z tool right here. If you don't like putting a lot of things on your C drive, you can in here put a shortcut to somewhere else. So for example, if I wanted to put that on like my E drive, like, oh, my streaming folder, I can right click in here and say create a shortcut here. So now when I hit the comma key and go to my tool menu, I have a shortcut to my streaming folder. And then there we go. You have access to all that stuff. So FYI. Okay, let me get caught up again. Is there any way to export an FBX file using Substance Painter? That I'm not sure of. Yeah, oh, that's a good point. So when I was doing my stuff, when I wanted to export that, I would do an FBX export visible, S normals on export, and then I would export my high. You can also do your low res, export your lows. You can actually name them differently. So when you go into Substance Painter and you go in here to bake maps, you can tell it. If I have a separate name, it's a separate subtool with a separate name, underscore high, underscore low. I can say match by mesh name on my normal and my ambient occlusion. Only say mesh name, and then when I bake my maps, it'll go through your names, high and low, and bake those together so you don't get artifacts where you don't want them. Remy asks, for tiny details like fishnet or stitch, is it okay to do them with high poly vertex color for ID map bake, or is it better to do it directly in Substance to avoid possible imperfections? Honestly, I would do it in Substance. It's the same thing I would do. Anything that's not going to break the surface. I did it in ZBrush just to kind of show you how it works, but I would do it in Substance. Anything that's not going to um, break the form, like if it's going to be baked into, if you would bake it into a displacement map because it's going to actually modify the geometry, then I would say do it in ZBrush. Or if you're going to build a game res and it's actually going to be building that detail in, do it in ZBrush. If it's just going to be a surface texture that's not going to break the forms, then I would just do it in Substance. And that goes for all sorts of details. So like little greebly, little screw ports or anything like that that aren't going to break the, or stitches. Like if you're doing a lot of cloth stitching in here, do it non-destructively. And I can show you that real quick. So for example, if we go in here, let's go ahead and just, you know what, we can use this. So I'm going to use this layer here. We'll call this stitches. So let's say we want to make some stitches on our object here. So I'm going to find, and I want to do it non-destructively. So, or less destructively than going all the way into ZBrush, putting stitches on an IMM brush, breaking that with an ID, hoping my bakes are clean, and then using that as a mask. So instead of doing that, what we're going to do is add a black mask, and then on this black mask, we can paint with, say, for example, Elemental Stitches. Let's grab stitches here, and then I can just drag out where I want the stitches to go. And you're like, well, okay, it's fine, but I want them closer together. That's okay. So you can go through here and you can change the spacing to be closer together. And also, you know what? I want some height. That's okay. Just go to here, and you can add some height. So you can make it increase that height, and then when you go through here and you paint, it's going to be height. And it's like, oh, it's too much height. Well, don't redraw it out. All you got to do is go back to this layer, and you can adjust the height on the fly, or you can even sync it in a little bit if you want to. Also, if you want to make the base color a different color, you can make it, let's put in like blue stitches, and we can change the metallicity. We can make the roughness. We can make it rougher or shinier or less shiny. Again, change the height on the fly at any time, and you're good to go. And you're always going to get a very clean mask because if you hold down Alt and tap, you're painting that on there. So there's that. Yeah, so this is how I would do anything that doesn't change that detail, or it doesn't change the form. It's not going to be built. I'm not going to go through here and retopologize those stitches in. It's just going to be baked into the normal. So in this case, just do it in Painter. If you want to embed those a little bit more, you can actually you can hit Control D to duplicate this off. We'll call this stitches. And I got this from Tony Reynolds. You can go through here and you can say, okay, on this layer, I only want to affect the height. So I'm going to turn off all these channels except for height, and I'm going to sync this in. And I'm also going to, on this, you can see I'm taking this mask, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say add a not a generator, add a filter. And on this filter, I'm going to blur that out. So now if I hold down Alt, you can see I'm blurring that stitch out here, and then you can go through here and you can say, you know, how much do you want to blur it out? We'll blur it out just a bit. And so now with this one, with the height embedded around it, you can kind of embed those stitches here. So these stitches kind of come out and are controlled by that, and then underneath you can kind of embed those stitches a little bit. So that's kind of what I would do. Question, how would you improve the sculpt without references? If you're not going to use reference, then you better know your source material like the back of your hand. And I usually don't. So even stuff I've studied for a long time, I would still want reference up just to keep me honest. You know, I don't have to sit there and stare at it and copy the reference, but it's nice to be able to go, you know, I'm working. Let me double check. Let me double check my work. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything, or if something's reading possibly weird, I can go and see why. Is having an envelope significantly better than just setting a bake distance in Substance Painter? You know, in Substance Painter, it does a pretty good job with the default settings. You can use an envelope. You can create an envelope, and if you use XNormal or Marmoset to bake, an envelope's certainly nice to use, and especially in Marmoset, you can go through and really, really fine-tune how that envelope works. But when I'm using reference, I'm fine, but as soon as I try to do something on my own, it's kind of difficult for me to do something great. That's just practice. And it's like it's not called pencil mile, it's pencil mile or something else, but it's kind of like the more you do it, the more comfortable you are creating, and then the more you create something. And really, it's like mindful for me. And I'm not a designer, but I do try, and I am trying. So, for example, when I'm learning and stuff, I've got this one is a good book, Robot. Oh, I have it flipped. Robot Evolution is a good one. Just you don't have to like be a mechanical engineer, but it is good to kind of go through and just learn the basics. Same thing with this one, this H point. It just talks about like H point's really good too because it goes over not only car design, but just design in general about designing intrinsically or like Mike Hill design. He talks about this a lot of designing based on the function of the object. It's going to have some rule sets that you need to follow. And then if you build on top of those rule sets, it'll automatically make your design more feasible. And you can start halfway up the gradient instead of doing blue sky development. You can kind of build on something that has to work for either gameplay implications or just physical implications of the player or just the human that you're designing around. Yeah, good. Yes. Oh, that's another thing too. So speaking of bleed, thanks for bringing that up. Video Nomad under Painter. Um, yeah, when we are going in through here and we make a new layer and we say add a mask color selection and we say pick, there, let's do it on the pants. And then on here, that color selection node, you do have a hardness and tolerance. You can change the tolerance if you are having bleed problems, but ideally, you want those masks to be nice and clean. It doesn't say, oh, baking bad, or am I doing it wrong? That I'm not sure about. I usually don't worry too much about ambient occlusion. But there's some settings in here you can play with. There will be hard surface lessons. We haven't gotten into the weapons or drone stuff yet. So my throat's getting dry. I talk fast because a lot of this stuff is stuff I've gone over, so it's kind of boring. It's going to sound bad. It's kind of boring for me to go over this stuff again. So it's a way to keep me awake. But it's also, I want to get a lot of information out, and it can really drag, especially for me. ZBrush folks actually say anything about when the UV peel will come around? That I'm not sure about. I haven't even. It looked cool, but that's about all I know. Okay, so let's get back to that presentation here. Okay, we've done our first demo 2 days in. Oh, here we go. Now to get this translucent effect, what I did was, and I'm not necessarily, okay, did I save my, did our shirt? Essentially what I did was, ooh, you know what? I wonder if I have, that would actually be really well prepared of me if I did. Oh, ooh, demos, pants. Damn, I don't have her file. I should have brought, I'm stupid. I should have brought the file in. Essentially what I did was, let's bring in tool. We're going to Nick Z thing here. So let's say we had some skin, and then he had like a tank top on. Underneath, and actually, yeah, tank top would be like this, and then down. There we go. So let's say he had a tank top on. Oops. Like so. What I did was, you can have an object here. You can use mRGB ZGrabber. I probably just did a document, or I'm sorry, a texture grab doc. And then now we can export this as like a PSD, and it's just an image, as you can see. And then I brought that into Substance Painter. And if I'm going to be painting orthographically, I'll change my camera to orthographic view. And then I can load that image up. So let's just do that real quick. It's going to be a really bad demo, but we'll just go ahead and say, have that selected. We'll say export that texture into our streaming. ZGrabber 1 is fine. And then we'll go back in here. And give me a second. Oh, that's why. My source files, I didn't copy over because it was too big. Okay, so we've got our zgrab01. I can just drag it in here, I think. It's not gonna let us. All right, let's convert this real quick. You know, I probably should have saved it. Let's see if we can do that. ZBrush, texture, export. Come on, shut up, Adobe. JPEG. Oh. Is it because, oh, you know what it probably is? If I got this from, oh, hold on. Properties. No, it's not read only. Why is it not letting me bring in anything? Oh, you know what? I'm stupid. Drag it down here, not into your viewport. Oh, okay. So we got zgrab01. We're going to use this as a texture. You can save it as the current session or into the project itself or into the shelf forever. I'll just do current session, import. So now I have zgrab01 in here. So I can snap it to my orthographic view. And then in here, we can go into first. Let's go into layers here. Let's do a regular layer, which we can paint on. And or, you know, you can do a paint on layer and put it behind here. Essentially, actually, let's just do it onto the shirt. So for example, skin, face, pants, steel, rubber. I should organize this a little bit more. So the shirt section down here, if I hold down Alt, you can see that's the shirt. And then let's give me a little bit more breathing room here. So here's our vest visibility. I just did a color ID selection. So this color breakup in here is just a painted thing. So if I put in a little paint layer in here, I'm like, okay, I want to paint the body behind here. That's when I go into 3 mode, which is, come on, projection. And then through here, I can go down here to my base color. I can drag that into my base color. And now I can just line up my object, or I can tap S and I can make this, I can rotate this, or I can scale this up. So I'm going to line that up behind here. And then on this layer here, we're just going to be painting color information. So now I can go through here and I can paint that color information behind her shirt, and then it shows up. So I had, if you look in the demo, I had side views, front views, back views of her skin and the little undershirt she had. I matched it up and then I just painted through, and that just gives you the illusion of, let's turn this off, turn this on. Let's go back into painting mode. That illusion that it's a translucent shirt because I'm painting the skin and the shirt through it. So then if you did want to render this in iRay, let's go ahead and change it back to our perspective view camera here. All you can do is hit iRay. Wait for it to warm up. And then let's go ahead and change her environment here. So we'll go from a panorama to like a street here, and that'll kind of put her in that street view. In the dome, you can change the radius and the texture scale. You can also put in a clear color if you want to use the environment to light the object. So if I hold down Shift and right click, we're using the environment to light the object. But if you don't want to see that, you can turn on clear color, turn on reflectivity, all that stuff. So there's your little GameRes person that can run around in game, all that good stuff. So let's go out of iRay here. You can also save your image and stuff as well. And you can render larger than you might need to. Yeah, how to export mesh plus texture in Substance Painter, that I don't know. Like file, if it's possible. It's been a while since oh, you can export mesh. Export your mesh. And then when you go to export your textures, this is where you get into your configuration and how you want to export them up. It's kind of up to you how you want to export your channels. So, okay, yeah, you can do both. How to define character loops in ZBrush, that's just going to be using ZRemesher unless you want to automatically do it, in which case, by all means, type in retope. And I've covered that infinity times in here. As far as like, using ZSphere, using ZRemesh, and then cleaning it up with topology, manually plotting topology with ZSpheres, using ZRemesher and ZSpheres together. I wish I was on drugs. That'd probably make this a little bit easier. I'm already, like I mentioned in the beginning, end of October or end of September, early October, man, allergies in Texas kill me. Slender presenter mentioned ZRemesh would make the edge flow folds follow the folds that's generated in Marvelous Designer. It's not necessarily a good thing. When do you think that would be a problem? Possibly deformations. I'll have to rewatch that. I need to go back through and take notes on the videos. But yeah, if you use if you bring in stuff in Marvelous Designer and you use ZRemesher and you have your adaptive size up, it'll build in the folds, but depending on how if you have like a base mesh deforming underneath your folds, sometimes you want the topology to follow your base mesh, or any animation reasons of why you would want your base mesh to not necessarily follow the folds. I suppose that'd be a problem. Or if it follows the folds, but it's just minor folds or tertiary reads, and you just want to bake it in and not have the geometry actually be deformed by that detail, then that might be why. I want to texture realistic clothing model in Marvelous Designer. How I get all the maps from a single high-res fabric photo. That gets into like production stuff, and the best resource I can give you for that one would be Allegorithmic posts a lot of stuff on like how to make awesome materials. We can even sip in here for like fabric, like sportswear fabrics, hybrid fabrics. I'm trying to see. There's a lot of like how to create fabrics. So Allegorithmic and using Substance Designer and or even just downloading in Substance Painter. All of that stuff. It's like converting a photograph to a material that has the correct properties and values. That's a whole thing. So I can't do it here, but there's a lot of resources out there for that. So is there a way to remedy that in ZBrush not going through Maya? You can do ZRemesher with your adaptive size all the way down, and it'll disregard your edge flow and error on the side of making quads. You can also just manually go through and retopologize however you want using ZSpheres or the topology brush perhaps. 3D Studio Max and Maya for hard surface modeling. I haven't used 3D Studio Max since I was in college to get my associate's degree, so probably about 12 years ago. And then Maya, I mean, I do sometimes, but generally speaking, I just stick in ZBrush. And in fact, everything we're going to on this presentation was done 100% in ZBrush. So rapid iteration weapons. This stuff here, let's see if I remember the steps. I think I can do this. What I'm going to do is going to texture, import, and we're going to grab, let's see, demos, pistol extrude. So we'll grab, are you kidding me? Fine. Properties, read only. So we got this texture here. It's a lot of different ways to get this texture. You can paint it through Spotlight. You can apply it to a plane, which is what I'm going to do. I'll take this plane 3D here, go into edit mode, and then underneath, make Polymesh 3D. There is a Polypaint from texture, so you have to have that texture loaded. Go ahead and select it. And then with that texture loaded, you can say Polypaint for texture. If you hold down Shift, it will Oh, mRGB, and then hold down Shift. Oh wait, this is what we want to do. Sorry. So go in here, texture, grab your texture under texture map, go to create. Select it, and then say polypaint from texture. So let's do this again because that was ugly. It's been a while since I've done this, folks. I apologize. So texture map off. Here's what we're gonna do. So you are gonna go to texture, import. You're gonna grab your image here, and then we're gonna grab a polyplane here. Go into edit mode. It's gonna make that a white color. Make polymesh 3D, so it's a editable mesh. We're gonna go down here to texture map. We're gonna select that texture that we imported, and then if we go to polypaint, you're gonna see we have a polypaint from texture. If you hold down Shift, that'll actually snap the ratio to the correct size of the imported texture, so you get perfectly. However, you're going to notice it's very low res, so that's not a huge deal. All I was really looking for was the ratio, so we'll go ahead and go back up here to geometry. We're going to turn off the smooth modifier so we can keep our edges nice and crispy, or our corners not melted. Divide, 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 divide. So we have enough points, so when we do a polypaint from texture, we'll get a nice high-res version of that object. So now if I want to extrude this from a plane, and in fact, yeah, we'll do that. If you want to extrude this from a plane, you can go up here to subtool, and so we can have, you can see what we're doing, we have the polyplane with the textures on there. I'm going to go here to masking, and we're going to say mask by color and then mask by intensity. So it got a little darker. If you go up here and turn off our polypaint here, you're going to see this is our mask. So let's go over here to mask adjust. I'm going to take this blur and turn it down to 0. This mask profile, if I take this focal shift and just drag it over and then hit apply, that's going to make it a little bit easier. It kind of just gives me a more contrasty image. Hold down control, let's go to mask pin. And then anything I don't want to be masked, I'm actually going to do mask pin with an alpha just to tighten up those corners a little bit here. And then also under stroke, lazy mouse, make sure that's off. And then it's going to go in here and like clean up this mask a little bit. And draw size, bring this down a little bit. Masking is one of those weird modifiers, like if you hold down control and try to do stuff you're normally used to, you might have a hard time. So anyway, okay, this is cleaned up. These are LEDs, these are holes, that's fine. So this is essentially what I'm looking for here. You can also go through here and let's take that alpha off. And I know this goes straight across here, so I'm just going to take this mask and just clean that mask up a little bit. So here's my mask. We can go through here to our geometry or subtool here. You can turn colorize back on, so we've just basically masked where the color is. In fact, this is an LED as well. Okay, I think we're in good shape. So, just like we did before, we can hit Control W to make that a polygroup, or you can give a that edge loop mask border, delete lower edge loop mask border. So now we can hold down Control Shift. If we turn off the polypaint, you see we have polygroup in here. Hold down Control Shift, isolate that, and then we can do a delete hidden. And now we have our gun on a plane. Now if we want to give this thickness and throw it into game real quick, or if you just want to like, I mean, you can just take this and pose it, but sometimes it's nice to have a little extruded thickness for when you're going to go draw. So how do we do that? So first of all, I like to make sure I'm Z forward. That's probably what I should have done first, but we can fix it here. Hold down Shift, and I'm just going to make this, rotate that so we are, you can see we're Z forward and then Y up. There we go. So Z forward, Y up. So I'm going to take this here, and we're going to go down here to our subtool, extract, and we're going to turn off smooth, and then we'll hit extract, yes. And that'll give us some thickness. I think that's fine. We can make this as thick or as thin as we want. I'm going to go ahead and say accept because it's just a preview. If you hit accept, that'll actually make real geometry here. So now we've got, start our line here, you can see we've got polygroups, we've got some thickness, and it's right across here. We also have some little stragglers out here. If you hold down Control Shift and just grab a little piece of this gun, do Control Shift A, which is tool visibility grow all. Control Shift drag, you'll see we got a bunch of little stragglers out here. So if, again, Control Shift, grab a little piece, Control Shift A. It's not going to grab your stragglers, those aren't vert welded. Geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, and there we go. So now, let's turn our line back on. I'm going to do a quick geometry, modify topology, mirror, and weld. Puts a little line down the middle, and now I can just make this as thick or as thin as I want to, like so. And you could, use this as your high-res, pre-process it, decimate it down, bake it in Painter however you want to, or even if you're just going to stay in ZBrush. In the ZBrush Friday Summit, they did go over new camera stuff. So you can dial in actual camera values, which is great for matching reference or painting from like camera taken images for like photograph or portraits and stuff. But what we can do is we can turn off our floor and we can go into perspective, and you can go up here to draw, and you can change your angle of view to kind of match maybe your game angle, and then you can just position this. And so now you have your concept. Here's your first person view. You have your concept, and you have a little bit of thickness here, and you can go through, and if you want to deep dive on these a little bit more, the making of this weapon here, guess this one. If you want to see the making of this weapon right here, and also taking it into Painter and texturing it up, you can go to my page here, and it's called the Sci-Fi Pistol series. So this one has 42 videos in it, and it'll walk you through a bunch of different techniques to arrive at this type of weapon, but it all starts here. And you know what? That's actually the same, if I think about it. Let's see. Pinned. I'm going to pin my extracted gun here. I'm going to do a mirror in Z. Whoops. Deformation mirror in Z. Scale this down a little bit. So essentially, it's kind of neat. So here's my extruded concept sketch, very early on in development, and then a lot of different methods to go from this here to this here. But there you go. So, and of course, just like I do in the presentation, you can do this in an entire sheet. All you gotta do is bring in your thumbnail sheets, do the exact same method, extract them out of polyplanes. You can do auto groups or group split or split the parts, and then you'll have a bunch of different weapons in here. I can see if I have. Streaming, recording, streaming, summit, demos, pistol extrude. Yeah, I just have the gun in there, so I don't have those demo files. Can you bring your model straight from Model Designer to Substance Painter, or do you need to retope regardless only for texturing? You don't have to do anything. If it's just vertices, so you can just import those OBJs right into Substance Painter. I prefer to retopologize first, and then so if you go, actually a good playlist is ZBrush to Marvelous Quick Start. Where's that at? Somewhere in here is a ZBrush to Marvelous Quick Start. There it is. And then that'll walk you through a bunch of different of those kind of things. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. AK Chang. Okay, so I think my throat's getting better. Let's keep on moving. Let's keep rocking. So we're here to our grandma tests, and just refining the gun. Like the Sci-Fi Pistol series goes over a lot of this thing, just kind of refining and always testing an engine and doing your material IDs. This here, I don't know if I can demo this. Essentially all it is, this one I'm going to save for a later demo. This is like just how to do rough animations and then getting those into a reel. I'm not set up to do that just yet. We've already demoed this here. Now this one is if you already have, for example, in ZBrush, you can go ahead and hide this here. So you've gone through, you have your material IDs here. You have everything named. Oh, if you are going to name these things, always put a null node at the top, and then when you go to save your file, it'll just rename this top node, and it'll leave these ones alone. So we've already gone through. We have our high res broken up into animatable pieces, so trigger high, cylinder high, barrel high. And we want to export this as our high res with all these underscore highs. So this is where we go into Z plugin, FBX exporter, visible, S normals, export. S normals keeps your file size way down. Export, and then you're good to go. Now, if you wanted to do a low res for all of these, what you can do is, you've already exported your file, you already saved it, and now you want to do decimate these down. Now, for example, like this barrel, if you go through here, these are made up of actual separate pieces. So if you just decimated these down, like all these pieces right in here would be decimated as separate objects. But in this case, it's like, well, no, I don't want this to be one solid piece, like in a solid envelope like we've talked about before. So in that case, you're going to use a couple different ways you can do this, but one way I would probably do it is just use Dynamesh. So turn on project, turn off blur, Dynamesh at whatever resolution you want to. It's essentially doing the voxelize step and Houdini. If you've watched that series, you're just voxelizing this. You're Dynameshing this together to get a nice envelope, and then now if I hold down Control Shift, grab a little piece, Control Shift A, it's all one solid object. We don't have like little bitty pieces all stuck together. So this is the start of our game res, and then from this point, you can go into Decimation Master and preprocess current, decimate it down to whatever you want, and you're in good shape. Now, what if you wanted to do that for all of your objects at the same time? Let's go back and turn everything else back on. So instead of doing that one by one, which you certainly can do, if you want to do this all at once, there's a plugin called ZRepeatIt. So go here to instructions here. Essentially, go to subtool, all high. That's going to ensure that your subtools, and that's just in here. I'll show you where that is. Subtool, all high. That goes through your subtools and makes sure that everything's at the highest subdivision level. And this one we don't need anymore. And then Z plugin, subtool master, do visible. You want to resolve your duplicate names. Ideally, when you're going through an undernaming undersky horror, underscore high. Make sure you're not repeating your subtool names, because Decimation Master, when it's going through, it's going to go, these two subtools have the same name. It has to export files that it needs, and when it does that, if they have the same name, it's going to have an error. So just make sure you resolve your duplicate names. Do visible resolve duplicate names. This is going to throw a 1, I believe, at the end. So do this and then look for any 1s and go, ooh, this was renamed. I need to rename this something completely different. Now ZRepeatIt. I'm having a hard time. It's early and my brain is gone. ZRepeatIt. You can set it to Dynamesh at whatever value you want. So when we Dynamesh this, you can see we have a value of turn off project, turn off blur, say a resolution of 736 is what we wanted. And we wanted, if the reason why we want to Dynamesh everything at the same resolution is so when we decimate and we do our percentage, it's somewhat predictable. It's not a huge deal. If it doesn't work perfectly, you can go through and change it after the fact. But essentially, if this value works for you, what we can do is let's undo that. Let's go down here to Dynamesh. So we said 768 is the number we like. So we're going to go down here to ZRepeatIt. We're going to say record new. And while it's recording, I'm going to say, turn off project, turn off blur, take your resolution, do like 758 or 760, hit Dynamesh, and then end record. We'll call this Dynamesh 760. And now you can repeat to visible Dynamesh 760. It'll go through. Would you like to freeze this before? Oh, that's another thing too. Hit no. Before you do this, go through and delete your lower subdivision levels. That's another thing you can actually use ZRepeatIt for. So now if we go through here, you're going to see all of these things have been Dynameshed at that resolution. And now what we can do is you can also use remesh by union if you want to, but this is going to give you an unpredictable poly count. So you take your desired end poly count. So if we want to do calculator, let's say we want this gun to be like 25,000 polygons. So we're going to take our 25,000 polygons, which is the point count's going to be 50. So we're going to go 50,000 points. Oh, and your N polygon divide by your polygon total. So we want 50,000 points, but right now we're sitting at 549, so 550,000 active points. So 50,000 divided by 550,000 active points gives us a percentage of 9%. So if I go through here and I do decimation master pre-process all, it'll go through. I'm not going to do this for the demo because it's going to sit here watching a progress bar go, but it's going to go through and pre-process all of my subtools, and then I can go to decimate all, and I can put in that percentage, 9%, decimate everything, and it'll decimate everything down 9%. Now, once it does that, so I'm just going to do it for this one here. We'll say we did pre-process all, and then we did percentage of decimation down to 9%, decimate current. This is the result you would end up getting, and if you did this times all of these subtools, you'd get around 25,000 polygons. Now you can go through here individually and go, you know what, this is a little high. That's okay, you've already pre-processed all of these, so all you can do is alt-click on it and go, you know what, I want this to be dropped down to like, and actually 9% is wrong, so redo my math for me. But if we want to drop this down to like 1K polys, we can just make current, or we can put this up to like 1.5, decimate current, and you can kind of dial in exactly what resolution you want for the individual pieces. So just a kind of a quick way to get your low res here. Of course, you can do this all in Houdini. You can do this in any program you'd like, but that's just a quick way to do that. You can also go through here and rename these _low. Although really I found that if you leave them _high and then go to Z plugin, what I'm looking for, FBX, Z plugin, FBX export, and you just export these, again, export them with these settings. You can keep it _high and it'll still match the names. It doesn't have to be _low, but they may have changed that. Cool. What are we working on today? So today we're just going through ZBrush Summit stuff. We're going to be doing this all week long. So at the end of the day, once you've done this, so we have the high res here, and then we decimated this down, threw some just auto UVs on it, threw it in the painter, drag and drop onto my material IDs, do a little custom painting. And again, all of this stuff, the basics of this is all in that Sci-Fi Pistol series. So at that point, now you have a weapon that looks like this in game. And again, we're talking just a day's worth of work. Just to block out a high res quickly. And we have a one button solution to certain affinity, so we can skip a lot of that manual work in ZBrush, but you can do it manually in ZBrush. It doesn't take you too long. And here's that weapon that we were just working on, all cleaned up and in game. And again, these are just concept sketches, nothing crazy. And then you can go into Unreal. Hopefully that's not blowing your earballs out. Can ZBrush make you as sexy as you are? Yeah, actually it can, guaranteed. Do you know if there's a way to apply a mask curve with thickness instead of masking everything that's on the gradient? So when you apply the mask curve, it's like a precise mask brush. Let's check that out real quick. It's about to run out. And then I think that's it. There we go. So the decimation is animatable topology when we speak of weapons or mechs, sure. And hell, even a character with this topology, it can work. If I was to take this here, and it's not going to work great for like if you're doing exporting out for IMAX super close up of like deformations, but for video games, just getting something representative in game, you can ZRemesh if it makes you feel better. But honestly, if I was to do, again, we'll just do decimation master preprocess current, and we'll decimate this down to like say 8K polys. If I took this into game and I copied weights from like a base body and threw it in and he ran around, would he deform beautifully? No, but would he be able to run around and do stuff? Of course. It wouldn't. It like his elbows might be a little sharp, but when you're running around in game and they look like this, and they're just shooting and firing and running and dodging and weaving and motion blur and stuff, you don't notice. So getting something representative like this in game, and all this, she was just decimated. She wasn't like nicely animated topology loops. It's just a waste of time. In the early stages, when you get into refining, then you have to be a little bit more careful. But for now, that's all it is. Okay, so 7:30. I think I'm all caught up. We were going to look at, do you know if there's any way to apply a mask curve? So a mask curve is essentially, let's undo that. And let's hit Control W, and let's turn off our polypaint here. So mask curve, so hold down Control, and we have a mask curve here. So the mask curve, you hold down Control and then just drag out. It's just like clip or slice. Anything past that gradient is going to be masked. If you turn off X symmetry, it'll just do it on one side. And of course, you hold down Control and tap Alt once. It'll give you a Bezier curve. Hold down Control, tap twice. It'll give you a straight curve. So you can do that. But the question is a way to apply a mask with the curve with a thickness and mask everything. Oh, so yeah, so you hold down Control and you mask, and then you hold down Control and hit spacebar. You can do a brush radius. Let's see if that'll work. No, it doesn't. So what brush radius should do, and ideally with how the mask would work, is if I mask this out, it would actually give me my brush radius mask. And why I bring that up is if I hold down Control Shift, and we do a slice curve, and we slice through here and hold down spacebar, you'll get the B radius option. Hold down Control Shift and slice. Now you're getting a brush radius, so you can just go through here. You can hit W and you can Control tap that, and that'll give you your mask, but then you're also modifying your geometry, so it's not ideal. But yeah, that would be great, as if mask curve held down Control, and you can turn on B radius for your mask curve, and then you could, just get, instead of having to do like what I think you're probably having to try to do is like mask this and then go through here and like unmask this to get that. Just doing it in one stroke with brush radius would be awesome, but it doesn't look like it works that way. But an alternative is slice curve with brush radius. You can go through here and you can slice through your brush radii, and then we can isolate this one, we can isolate this one, we can mask it, or you can hit W and you can Control tap these and that'll just mask them out. We can maybe Control Alt tap, no. Yeah, it's probably easier just to hit here, Control Shift, mask, invert, and there you go. All of that stuff can be found underneath the masking menu, but those are the hotkeys. Yeah, ZRemeet is that's the Beef Council version of the plugin. How do you make gear sets in ZBrush? Is there any plugin like gear sets? I'm assuming not like armor sets, because that's just, I wish there was a plugin for that. Are you talking about something like making gears like this? Or like the brush insert? I think there's some gears in here somewhere. Steam gears, like these things. These kind of gears, it's probably just a lot of ZModeler and then radial symmetry. But if you want to make gears using this thing, you can go down here to initialize, and there's so many options in here to make really cool like intersections and tilts and interior radiuses and widths. You can play with this thing all day long. Get some really cool stuff going. Cool. Alrighty, let's keep moving along. So we're getting into rapid iteration of the drone. So these things here is essentially, if you go to like my CGMA Master Academy class, the first section, actually I can show you the videos. I can't show you the videos, but I can show you the names of the videos. Here's my video list. So this is my CG Master Academy course. Good luck. It's a lot of videos to watch, but I am going to have these available for sale at some point. I just have to sit down and do it. But in the meantime, Unit 0 I'm going to put out for free. I just have to sit down and do it. And this is just like a updated version of Intro to ZBrush Part 1 plus. It's like on steroids. And then under here, this first unit, we go into blockout ideation. And that's essentially a lot of this is like how insert mesh brushes work and how you can create very quick things like this using very simple brushes. So let's see if I'm actually prepared for this demo, which I'm probably not, but we'll figure it out. So for instance, I go to the comma key here and I go to my brushes, and I go to my insert mesh brushes, or possibly it would be under my military brushes, which aren't in here. Oh yeah, it is. Oh. And it's not in here. But essentially what I was doing, and let me just, I'm going to take this and I'm going to move this down because this is all I really had. So we can just make these really quick. So for example, under jet parts here, it would essentially be, let's go out of edit mode, hit Control N, and we're going to make, we'll start with a sphere. Go into edit mode, we'll go to initialize. I'm going to make this like h divide of 16, v divides of 16. And then we're going to go into make polymesh 3D, hold down Control Shift. We're going to get rid of these bottom polygons here, delete hidden, and then we'll just do a quick close, convex hole operation, and then W, it's already kind of there. We can hit W, or yeah, Alt, tap here, and then we can just stretch this out. That'll give us like a nose cone, and I like to make these all in polygroup here. You could even do like a crease PG. That'll be one shape. Another shape we might need is like a wing. So we can go through here and we'll start with, it doesn't really matter, polymesh 3D. We're going to go down here to initialize. Because it's already a polymesh 3D, we don't have to go down to initialize or make polymesh 3D first. It already is one. So we can just hit Q cube, and then we can just go through here and essentially we'll just stretch this out. We'll stretch this out. And then, you know what, let's go in here. You know what, let's do a Q cube resolution of 1. It'll make our lives a little bit easier. And essentially all I'm going to do is hold down, Control, mask lasso, or mask pin, hold down Control, and then Alt. That'll unmask everything but that point. I'm just going to move this in here, and we'll just make this kind of a wing shape. If we want to, we can help this one out. We can hover over this face, Q-mesh, single poly is fine. And then we can just pull this out. That'll give us just a nice wing shape. You can use this as is as like a tail, which we are going to do. Or if you want to do, if we turn on the floor here, we can move this over this way, and we can do a quick mirror and weld across the X. And now we have kind of like tail wings or just wings. So we have a jet nozzle here. We're going to insert our tail wings. Yeah, tail wings here. I've been tasked with feeding the dogs today. So, and also, you know what? I'm going to duplicate this wing off here. Hold down Control Shift. We're going to go out of X symmetry mode. We're going to do geometry modify topology delete hidden, and I'm going to go to unmask mesh center, and we're going to hold down Shift, and we're just going to move that right to the middle of the world here. And we can do a quick mirror and weld across the X if you want to. But essentially, this is going to be like maybe a tail piece, and then this is the on the other side, and then this is our nose piece. And I think that's it. Those are pretty much all of the relevant pieces that I made, plus some other insert mesh brushes, which we'll go over in just a second. So again, if we're just doing shape ideation, we're going to make a quick insert mesh brush out of all these subtools here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to deformation. We're going to unify, and then we're going to repeat to other. And let's make them all consistently sized, so I'm not hunting all over the place of where they are in space. And then I want to make sure these are oriented. We'll turn on our floor again. We'll say oriented Z forward, so that as I'm dragging them out, they're dragging out predictably as I would expect. So if I'm going to be dragging out a nose cone, I'm probably going to be wanting to drag it out towards me from a surface. So I'm going to move this forward. And then for a tail, I'm probably going to be wanting to be dragging it out so the bottom or the top is facing me. So I'm going to turn it this way. And then for the wings, I think this is fine, just facing me like this. If it makes you feel better, since it's changing the bounding box size, you can do another unify, repeat to other, and that'll kind of settle them back into place. So now we want to orient our camera to how we want to see these things as we're drawing them out. And then we can go down here to B, create, insert multi-mesh, and now we have a multi-mesh here. So if we start with a cylinder here, make polymesh 3D. And again, I'm always looking to be Z forward, Y up, just because that's how things work in ZBrush best. And even at this point, I can immediately just go into Dynamesh. Let's make that lower. So here we have X symmetry turned on, do a quick geometry modify topology mirror and weld, and then immediately I can go through here, hold on Control Shift, and start like clipping through. You can make the fuselage. Oh, we still have brush radius on, so that's kind of cool actually. If we do brush radius and you're clipping, it'll actually give you a little little brush radius inset. Of course, depending on your brush size, it'll make that inset bigger or smaller. And you can also, again, tap Alt twice to do hard surface stuff. Now, is this box modeling? Is this clean? No. But again, we're just getting our ideas out. We're getting our shapes out. But I'm going to go ahead and turn brush radius off. And let's say we want to just, make some changes and just get this thing kind of up and running and ready to go. Also, ideally, you're working at the scale that you need to be for your external source. So if you do have a proxy of a ship that's already been made, import that and then start building with that in mind so that you're not working at ZBrush scale that may or may not be compatible with what you need to work on. So again, we have our insert mesh brushes here, and anytime I just go up here and select them, and then just I can just drag off here, and then we can scale these down and then scale them out. Again, because we talked about this earlier, under the brush settings here, we can do under auto masking, we have auto mask mesh insert already turned on. So if we want to, and I like to do this too, I like to work with separate subtools. You don't have to, you can control drag again, and then now it's all stuck together. But if you can also hit the M key with the selected. Let's say we want to put a little tail thing here, so we can just drag that out. If you want to work on this one separately, just go ahead and split it out. So because it's already masked, I like to do a split mask points, and that'll just split that off. Alternatively, if we grab this one here, and you drag these out, and it's like, okay, these are the wings. Let's drag them the other way. So we got the wings on there. If you do split unmasked points, that'll split them below. If you do split mask points, it'll split the rest of it'll invert what it's splitting. So I have it in my custom menu as split unmasked splits what I'm working on below, split mask splits what I'm working on above. That's useful for like doing booleans. So if we turn on this to a subtractive mesh, turn on the live boolean, you can actually use this as a subtractive mesh to kind of cut through your object, which we get the live booleans. It's in my ZBrush 4R8 playlist, the Sci-Fi Pistol series, all that stuff. I'll show you that. This is an important one. ZBrush 4R8, what's new? We go over all of the live boolean stuff. I think it's early on too. So live boolean and everything, all the cool stuff you can do with live booleans is all on that channel. Anyway, so yeah, what I can do is I can duplicate this off, so I can have wings that'll kind of sit within there. I can put like a little notch in there with my live boolean, and then I can sit these wings kind of in here. Now at this point, I can process this mesh as a live boolean, but also what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn live boolean off. Since this is already subtractive, I can just simply, if I turn on polyframe, I can merge that down, which is under the merge menu. I just merged it down, and if I go into solo mode, you're going to see this is a white polygroup. So if I control drag to Dynamesh, it'll just go slice that out for me. So I can use live boolean as kind of a preview of what it'll look like, and then I can just Dynamesh it because I'm working fast and loose and I don't really care too much. So that's one thing you can do. Also, while you're doing this, you can be going into your brushes here. I have a bunch of like hard surface alpha brushes that I got on Gumroad that I converted to these things. So I can double click any of these. And now I have, see how these alphas are changing on the fly? If you want more info on that, that ZBrush 4R8 playlists, scroll down, and there's create multi-alpha and create alphas from meshes is all in here. So yeah, mixing 2D and 3D alpha brushes, multi-alpha from brush from images. You can do that there. So now, because I have those selected, I can grab those, and I can go through here. And again, we're just keeping it loose. We're not worried too much about exactly how this edge flow is going to be working or anything like that. You can also use ZModeler for this stuff. You don't have to go in here and like Dynamesh and create crazy complex things. You can just use ZModeler and get some stuff going. You can also just use stuff like Clay Buildup if you want to just kind of explore some shapes. You can use H-Polish to go through here and refine them a little bit. You can use Trim Dynamic if you want to. Trim Smooth Border is another one. If you go up here to Brush and you go down here to Trim, Trim Smooth Border is another good one. You can just kind of go through here and you can just pick a plane and it'll just kind of harden along that plane, and you can actually add a square alpha if you want to keep it. This is good for rocks too. So you can kind of go through here and you can just kind of like trim surfaces off, and also clip. We talked about that. You can go through here and you can just like clip certain things. If you also want to, hit Control W, Control drag. This is all Dynamesh. Let's say we want to take a chunk out of this. One way you can do that, so hold down Control Shift. We're going to go into Slice, make sure B radius is off, And so we can slice through here. And if we do Dynamesh with groups turned on, that's going to Dynamesh, and then this is going to be its own separate piece. So we can go through here, we can isolate this one, we can slice this piece. Again, Dynamesh with groups turned on. We can isolate this one, go ahead and split it off. Go back down here to this one, hit Control W, probably turn groups off, Dynamesh that together. It's all one solid piece again. And now you have like a little inset piece here. I'm going to hit X to go out of X symmetry, Alt to go to Unmesh Mesh Center, and we can just kind of stick this back in here if we want to. Just kind of a little separate piece. And again, it's just quick, it's just easy, it's just Dynamesh, no big deal. But at least you have like a little working mesh that you can kind of go through here. And then you can even like mask this. If you need more resolution to work with, no big deal. Just raise that resolution. Let's turn off groups. And let's go through here and we'll just mask this, or we'll use like mask lasso. And we'll say we'll mask this here, invert that, and we'll just pull this out here. You know, so you can just very quickly and redynamesh as needed. So very quickly go through here, and you can use alphas, you can slice things up, you can slice things off, you can pop these things out. And if you want to, again, because you know you can use box modeling in here, so we got to like insert single edge loop. We can put one in here. We can hold down Shift. So you can see here it's trying to conform to the geometry. Hold down Shift. That'll make it just a straight line. And then we can go through here. We'll do like insert multiple edge loops. And then we can Alt Tap mark these ones. And then we can do like QMesh polygroup all. And then we can go through here. We can say like slide edge. We can slide this one back and this one back, I guess. And you can even go through here. And if you can mix and match, so you don't have to just box model. You can take this one here. Let's raise that resolution just a bit. And now we can hold. Also, I should probably mention this. You'll see me when I raise the resolution. I'll go through here and I'll like smooth a little bit, and then I'll redynamesh. Sometimes you'll like raise the resolution, you dynamesh, or you control drag, and it doesn't do anything. Sometimes you just need to tap the mesh just a little bit, just to reactivate it, and then dynamesh will work again. But for this instance here, we'll go to like mask pin, and we'll just go through here, and we'll say we'll take this chunk here. And again, you can use an insert mesh brush for this. I'm going to invert that mask. It masks all the way through. So we'll mask that out. And then we'll say, let's move this up. Control drag. And again, we can go through here. It's like, oh, you know what? I wanted to move that up, but I also want to clip that back down. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift, and it's going to want to do a slice. If you tap Control, it'll temporarily become visibility. Hold down Alt, and now we can do Control Shift. And we don't want to do slice. We want to do clip. And now we can like clip this out, bring everything else back, redynamesh it, and you can kind of resolve your shapes like this. Or again, like this could have been an insert mesh brush that was dynameshed. So we can put a little cylinder on the back here. And if I wanted to, let's go ahead and do a split unmasked points. That'll drop it below. And then here's where we can go through here. We can do, you know what, I want to taper this one. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to go into the gizmo. Let's go to the taper deformer. I'm just going to taper this cylinder down a little bit. And if I want to just take these outer rings here, I'm going to do just a quick group by normals. I'm going to, you know what, just to make this easier to grab, insert single edge loop, and then Control Shift drag, delete hidden, and then we can just do QMesh polygroup all and QMesh this out. Or if you wanted to, you can also go through here. I'm going to hold down Alt and start dragging, tap Alt to get a new polygroup, and I'm just going to go all the way around, and like every other one, I'm just going to paint these. You can also use like using edge loops over an edge, and you can use like polygroup loops, but it's a little bit faster. Now that I have all those broken out, I can go down here to geometry, and we can do, say, a modify topology. Let's get rid of this edge loop here. And there is we'll get to this when we get to the hair later on. We can do unweld groups border, and heck, we can even do edge loops here. We can do panel loops. So we'll say panel loops polished down to 0. We'll grab some thickness here, double turned on, and we can actually just go through here and pop out some like panels here and make that kind of jet looking. A lot of different ways to accomplish what I just did. Yeah, so you can also use ZModeler, QMesh, polygroup all. And although, you know what, let's not do QMesh because we want to stick things together. Let's do extrude, polygroup all. So then we can just go around here. And I think this will work. Let's do a quick auto groups to make sure I'm not lying to you guys. It is welding them together. Never mind, skip that. Trying to think if there's an elegant way out of that situation. You can do with these things, you can do, I wouldn't do it this way. I would use panel groups like I was showing you, but what you can do in a pinch is you can do split, group split, because they're all single polygroups here. So then you can go through here and you can say, this one's safe to do, QMesh polygroup all. You can QMesh this out to get some thickness, and then you can just step through. You can use your arrow key here, and you can just tap. So I'm just stepping through my polygroups here. Again, this is a silly way to do this, but hey, you know what? And then we can go back to the top here, and then we can just merge these all back together, like so. And now, if I do an auto groups, now you do need to be careful because those points are sitting right on top of each other. So there are some export settings where it will merge those points back. But that's just one way you can work. I don't know. That may or may not be worthwhile to you guys. So anyway, so you've got that. Also, if you want to steal some stuff, not steal, borrow, we can go into our comma key here. We can go into projects. Now you're going to want to save this because if I load up a project, it's going to completely erase all of this stuff. So if I drag this back out, we'll go ahead and like save this as streaming summit demos. We'll just throw this out here. Yep. And then we'll go into our comma key, go into project, and then we're going to go to demo projects here. And you know what? Is it? Where did I take that? I know I got, oh, Boolean. So we're going to go into Boolean here. We've got our computer case fan. I think Drust did. So if you turn on live Boolean, that's the result you're going to get. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say Boolean. We'll turn on dynamic subdiv, make Boolean mesh, and that'll throw out our Boolean mesh here. I can hold down, it's got the fan right here. So I'm going to hit B, create insert mesh, new, turn off live Boolean. We can load up what we were working on here. And then, yeah, we can just drag these things on here. We can go into Xsymmetry. And now we've got a fan we can put in. Not that you would put a fan in here, but, you know, just another example of how you can take little pieces from here and there. And, you know, if you are buying Kitbash libraries from Gumroad, I'm not a big fan of using them straight up. I will use them for like form exploration. So for example, I go to brush, hard surface Kitbash, surface alpha. So for example, if we go to like structural components, so I have communications, met components, plumbing, optics and sensors. Let's keep looking at that. I have these all organized. Joints, universal, pivot and universal. I have hinge joints, brackets. Ooh, shit, Boolean agreeables. Structure, more structural components, thick and thin. Just a bunch of stuff that I've bought and downloaded over the years. And again, I don't ever use something that's just like, oh, I'm gonna take this piece here and I'm gonna slap it right here, and then I'm gonna export it, bake it, and call it a day. By the time I've gone through, this is just for like shape exploration. So if I grab a weird shape like this, and I just plop it on here, and I go ahead and split mask points, and then I go here, and you know what? Depending on how this is made, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just quickly just Dynamesh this. It inherited the Dynamesh property, so if you drag something out on that's something that has Dynamesh turned on, it will have Dynamesh turned on with the exact same properties. So it's something to be aware of. And now I can go to unmesh mesh center, reset this, and we'll just do like a bend arc deformer, and then I can like bend this around, you know, and I can kind of decide, you know, do these things play together? Do I want to go through here and mask this out and like have this overlap a little bit, and maybe go in here to trim dynamic, you know, and then maybe go back into my alpha brush here. And these aren't the, you know what, let's go into our comma key here underneath brushes, and we're going to say hard surface alpha. I'm going to grab these vents here, or the base components is usually what I want. Yeah, so you can kind of play around with this, kind of play around with this. And again, you're just getting your shape exploration going. But yeah, do this for a while, and then eventually You'll have stuff like this, and you'll have stuff like this, and you can just continue to explore and extrapolate. This is a Joseph Drust demo. We may get into that later on. Hard surface modeling. Here's some more just really quick, dumb pieces so I can put like little legs on them and then just continue working through these shapes. These kind of things are fun doing with array mesh. Like anything round and circular with array mesh is easy and fun to do. So for example, if we go in here to like a cylinder, make polymesh 3D. How are we doing on time? Ooh, we're getting towards the end. All right, everybody ask your questions. I have my streaming topics open here, so I will be able to, follow up with these things. In fact, we went over some of these. Detail entire object. Yeah, that one we went over. The insert mesh brush reverse we'll get to later, but that was a question earlier on in the live stream. So what was I doing? We had a cylinder, and I was going to. Oh boy. Oh yeah, we're doing radial symmetry. I'm losing my mind. So if you want to just do Dynamesh radial symmetry, which is fine, you can go through here. You can just Dynamesh this thing. And then now instead of going through here and doing like, oh, let me trim dynamic. Oh, and if you want to get rid of this faceting, easy way to do that. Also, if you want to get rid of these extra lines without going to initialize, you can go in here to edge loop, delete loops. You can shrink this down. I like to just do a polygroup, group by normals, and then crease PG. Which is in here. You can also hover over an edge and you can like crease, edge loop complete. If you want to see what this looks like, you can hit D, and we're going to get to this later. You can do dynamic subdivisions to kind of preview it, Shift D to go out. If you want to, you can apply those dynamic subdivisions, and then now, when you turn off blur, turn off project, Dynamesh this, hit no, we don't want to freeze our subdivision levels, now we'll get no faceting. And now instead of in here, going through here and being like, I want to trim, I want to put a little bevel on here and sculpt one. Of course, you could Z-modeler a bevel. It's easy, just hover over, oops, let's go back down to subdivision level 1. We can do like a bevel as a complete. You can drop a bevel in here. And now if you do a crease polygroup in D, that's the thing you'll get. However, you do Shift D. You can also do like, we can bevel this edge here, and then we can go in here to insert multiple edge loops, interactive elevation, and you can just pull on this and you can do, oops, interactive elevation. You can start making multiple edge loops and you can round this out like so. So you can do a round, you can do a sharp. On this one, we'll just hit Control W. We'll do another crease PG. We'll hit D for our dynamic preview. So now we've got a rounded corner on this edge, a sharp one on this edge. If I like it, apply it, Dynamesh it. And then now if I want to do some weird stuff to this, we can hit X symmetry, and that's going to be X symmetry this way. We can do under the transform menu. Whoops. Let's grab this over on this side. Am I losing my mind? Come on, Mike. Transform menu. We have activate symmetry. We can do X and Y symmetry. So it's going to go top to bottom, X, Y, and Z symmetry. So it's going to go this way, that way, and top to bottom. Or you can do radial symmetry in the Y direction in this case because our floor is Y up. So in the Y direction, we can go through here and use radial symmetry. You can crank this radial count up a lot, and now you can go through here with like your standard brush, and you can just start carving in. You can go to your clay brush. You can do some like softer or layout. You can go in here and smooth. You can go in here with trim dynamic. You can sharpen these up a little bit. You can go in here to H polish and sharpen these up a little bit. You can hold down Alt. Start getting that. We can go down here to like maybe say 16. You can cut in little divots if you want to, or you can even use your clip brush. And you can go like through here and you can just chop out little divots, re-Dynamesh, and go through here and you can smooth. So very quickly, and again, this isn't box modeling, this is just quick and dirty ways to kind of arrive at these shapes. But then you can do, that's how I would do like this wheel here. It's just quick and dirty. You can do box modeling as well, but I was keeping it loose so that I can go through and slice it up as needed, turn it into little armor back plates and arms and stuff like that. This one here is more of a array mesh situation. So in this one, it's at the comma key. Let's see if they have one I can just use. Yeah, so if we double click on this array mesh here, it actually applied it to that mesh I was working on, which is actually kind of cool. So it took this mesh and it did put an array mesh on there. Let's grab just a Polymesh 3D here. I'm going to go down here to initialize, and we'll do a QCube. And I like to do a deformation unify just to make it ZBrush scale. We'll go ahead and shrink this down a little bit. And now if I wanted to go to array mesh and just do this my own, I can go into array mesh. And now we can turn on array mesh. And I like to do lock position, lock size, transpose. Transpose line, we have to hit Y so I can get my transpose line. This is old school ZBrush stuff. So we'll do a repeat of like, say, 16. And we'll do a rotate amount, X amount. Let's do a Z amount of, say, 360 degrees. And then the pivot, you can go and set your pivot, or you can just grab this little yellow thing right here, and that'll set your pivot where you want to. And so now these are just instance meshes. So if I go through here and I start, like I say, mask this out, and for this one I'm going to go back into gizmo mode. I can go through here and I can start making changes, and it's just going to propagate those changes to my other meshes here. When you're in gizmo mode, this will be disregarded. What transpose mode does is allow you to, use transpose to kind of set pivots. If you go out of transpose mode, now you can use transpose on individual objects. So you can use your transpose line, or like I like to use, just tap Y and go back into gizmo mode, and now you can make these changes however you see fit. So for instance, we can go through here, we'll do like insert, multiple edge loops, blop, blop, and then we'll go through here. Let's do a quick, just do a bevel, edge loop complete. And we'll bevel this, and then we can say QMesh, a single poly. We can like QMesh. Let's go into, you can turn array mesh off if it's in the way. And I'm actually going to go through here. We'll do insert, single edge loop, hold down Alt, and then we'll just like QMesh, single poly, and we'll just pull through. You can also turn on symmetry in this case, because our symmetry plane, we're not Z forward, which I should have checked on. That's okay. We can turn on symmetry in the Z direction. So then we can just pull these through, and then we can QMesh a poly, hold down Shift, and we can pull along that surface normal. And again, we can do like a slide edge here, and you can just box model to your heart's content, whatever you want to do. So anyway, we turn array mesh back on, and then that's the effect that we're getting. So you can use these to do very complex shapes, and you can, again, remember you can use your deformers here. So if you wanted to do like a bend arc or a bend curve, let's turn array mesh off. Let's reset this. Let's delete. Let's do a bend arc. There we go. So you can kind of bend these around a little bit, and then I turn array mesh back on, and however you want to do that. All right, so I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to go do a quick run through. What's the ideal poly count for first-person web and third-person character? Completely dependent on what type of game you're making. So ideal poly counts are kind of up to whatever the engine can handle, how many players are on the screen. I don't have an ideal number for you. Video Nomad says Fusion 360 is a better option for precise CAD stuff. Yeah, if you want to do really, really precise CAD data stuff, I have a playlist for that as well. There is on my channel, down here maybe, is a Fusion 360 quick start, and this you can actually go back and forth between ZBrush and Fusion 360. So you can concept stuff out in ZBrush really quickly, throw it into Fusion 360 as like a 3D concept. It just kind of sits there. So I think it's number 12, working with imported objects. You can as long as you keep quads in ZBrush, you can import it into Fusion 360 and convert it to a body, or convert it to a, I forget what they call it. It's been a long time, but you can convert it to a type of mesh within, like an organic mesh within Fusion 360. Then you can convert that to a body, and you can do all those operations on it. Also, you can like do this kind of thing where I'm like concepting this little weirdo piece that I'm just kind of figuring out, and then you can bring that into Fusion 360 as kind of just a 3D concept. So this is converting quad meshes into a body there, and then also you can take your weirdo Dynamesh mesh in here and just bring it in, and then that you can use to set up your sketches and make really, really precise versions of your ZBrush sketches. But as far as like measuring and stuff, yeah, CAD is hard to beat for accuracy. And again, if I miss any, I apologize. Is backface mask move? Wait. I think I missed some. Crap! It just jumped to the end there. Is it reasonable to build the Z-modeler shape of a high-res model as an alternative retopology method, maybe using project to stay on the surface? Yeah, you can. Yeah, absolutely. Whatever is easiest for you, and then yeah, if you want to project back, I usually use the Z topology brush, which we'll get to in a bit, maybe next time, and then snap that. But yeah, absolutely. Addition of a UV tool coming up. Get a better retopo tool like Quaddraw from Maya and ZBrush. That I don't know, but I wouldn't say no to it. You only save your work as Z tools or Z projects as well. I prefer doing Z tools only because I know it's a nice clean version of the file. It's only going to save the tool I have selected and the tool properties. If I go over here to file save, number one, it saves a project, which could be a bunch of garbage. You can go through here and you can like go through and say like subtool delete all. You can clean it up a little bit. But also if I send this file to somebody or a student sends me a file and they send me a Z project and I'm working on stuff, instead of just being able to go, oh, tool, load tool up, and now I can work with it with my other tools, it's just going to completely obliterate my ZBrush interface and I'm going to be working with just their file. So ideally, I like Z tools, but if Z projects are your thing, then having some issues with Z project recently, getting errors opening them. Yeah, that's scary to me, but I almost exclusively, I'm trying to think of there might be one weird instance where I would save out a Z project instead of a Z tool, but almost exclusively Z tools. Yeah, and in fact, if you want to do hard surface in ZBrush, for example, you know, just really quickly as a sneak preview of where we're going, let me go to my streaming. Do I have, you know what, I may not even have these things. I'll have to copy these things down a little bit. Let me see if I have just a working file. Hold on. Umesh. Start groups. Okay, so this is a 16 meg file, done 100% in ZBrush, and I'm just going to do a quick merge once it loads up, so I can just show you how it's kind of broken down. So here's the ZBrush file. Let's let it load in a little bit here. So this was all done in ZBrush. And then let's go to Skin Shader 4. You can maybe see it a little bit better. Matcap gray. So for example, if I do a quick merge visible, that's going to merge everything into one subtool here. And now you can see this is all the stuff. So if I turn on polyframe here, you can see it's all box modeled. I think I only cheated in one area, and that's on the radio back here. On the side, there was one like little Dynamesh reduced object here. But for example, I'm trying to think if there's anything in particular. You know what, we'll get to this later. But yeah, 100% done in ZBrush. You're going to see some parts disappeared from the original. That's because that was done with array mesh and nanomesh. So you're going to, and also if I go into live Boolean, all of these live Boolean chunks will be taken out. So now you can see, turn live Boolean off. Those are the little live Boolean pieces that are refining the mesh a little bit. And then if I go to this condensed mesh here, you're going to see anything that was array meshed is dropped down. You can have it not do that, but we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, you can do plenty of hard surface in ZBrush. In fact, yeah, once we get into the final files and stuff too, you know, it's fine. It's fun. Cool. Thanks for the kind words, Nocturnal Block Art. You have a video on AutoMask menu where you were talking about the topological button. Oh, in here, so if you have under the brush menu here, auto-masking. So topological, you can mask with topology, but usually what that is if you have the move brush and you have a mesh like demo head here, and you want to like say move the upper lip but not the lower lip, that's when you would turn on move topological. Let's change this to like 1.5, and now it's going to look at the topology. So if these there's like a mouth bag in there, you'll be able to move the upper lip separately from the lower lip. Alternatively, if you watch the blend shape video that I have on my YouTube channel, that was one I put in while I was in the hotel room at ZBrush Summit. I think it's just kind of sitting out there. Yeah, this one, ZBrush Maya Blend Shapes plugin. You can set up polygroups and stuff for this. You can hold down Control and rotate, and you can mask the upper and lower as well. So, but for masking topologically, you can do the same thing. You just turn on topological, and then when you're masking, let's change this range down. I think it works the same way. Maybe not. Mask, topological. Doesn't seem to be working that well. But usually I use it with the move brush. To use backface plus a move tool, I recently found how useful it is to adjust thickness on hard surfaces and get some interesting volumes. No, but that's a good point. Yeah, definitely do that. So when you're using, you just got to be careful. So when you, so make Polymesh 3D. So while you're doing this kind of stuff, and you know what, let's just Dynamesh this so we can see it a little bit better. So we're moving this and then moving this around, and with the move, it just moves like this. Also, if you want to pull out the points, you can go up here to the curve menu and you can say AccuCurve, and you can pull out to like sharp corners. So this is a way to kind of go through and maybe make some sharp corner adjustments in your mesh. Sometimes useful. Usually on thinner meshes, so that your brush radius, you can like pull in the corners like this and then pull out to corners like this. Like so. But anyway, if you have the move brush, it's just going to move. Let's turn AccuCurve off. So we're moving with our move brush, and then if you turn on backface masking, you can go through here and you can move with backface masking turn on, and it change thickness and stuff like that. It'll automatically mask whatever's behind. Of course, you want your mesh to move predictably, so just be aware that that's turned on. Also, the reason this was brought up last time is, for example, if you're sculpting through here and you're Dynameshing, it's going to pull through and make very thin meshes, so make sure you have backface masking turned on. Anyway, we went over this stuff already last stream. It's on Pixologic stream, but when I'm going to do a compilation playlist for all of these things, so it'll be in one nice playlist when it's all said and done. I'm going to be streaming tomorrow, Wednesdays, today, Thursday, and Friday. I'm going to be streaming, trying to get through all of these. So, yes, we did make the translucent shirt already. And the Infinite Painter playlist, I'll have to check my email. I haven't really caught up yet. What do you think is a good up-to-date topology reference for a game character? I'll have to get back to you on that one. I've got some links at work that I can copy over. Let me put this one in here. Eyelids, geometry. Do you have any tips? Yeah, we can cover that too. All the necessary maps in ZBrush for game assets without help from Designer Sims Painter. You can bake most of your maps in here under the Z plugin. So if you do want to just, now the problem, not the problem, but one of the things in ZBrush you have to do is you can't have an arbitrary low res and an arbitrary high res. Your low res has to be attached to your high res through subdivision history, so you will have to like make a low res and then project your details back as you subdivide. If you did have arbitrary meshes to start with, but if you go over here to multi-map exporter, you can turn on displacement, normal, texture, ambient occlusion, cavity. So you can bake quite a few things in here. I just see Painter a little bit easier. We're going to see the cinematic. That's going to be released sometime. I will let you guys know as soon as I possibly can. If you want to just kind of watch it within the context of my presentation, here's my presentation using ZBrush to facilitate smarter production with certain affinity. This is the presentation, and then like towards, I'll link you guys to the calisthenics video here. So let's say share, start at 40 minutes in. There you go. You can watch the cinematic there. Cool. Oh, sorry about that Nightbot thing. All right, yes, so Thursday, Friday I'll be streaming. Same bat time, same bat channel. Alrighty, everybody. Thanks for showing up. See you tomorrow morning. Cool. All right. See you guys later, and have a good rest of your day.